women have played such an important part in American history. Well, through the years, they fought for suffrage, child labor laws, and prison reform. One woman was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and other gentlewomen would storm on the bars during the temperance movement. They have made such important contributions to society. Well, the 12 stars in this quilt are dedicated to 12 notable women in American history. Well, some of them are well known as the Clara Barton Star, known for delivering medical supplies to the soldiers during the Civil War. Now, this is the Eleanor Roosevelt Star, dedicated to her for her efforts in helping the poor, and the WPA in the 1930s. Now, some star recipients aren't quite as well known as Sojourner Truth. Now, she was a traveling preacher dedicated to women's rights. And as we make these blocks, you'll learn more about each one of these notable women. Well, celebrations are American tradition, and I salute the courage and resourcefulness that made each one of these women American stars. I dedicate the first star to Barbara Frietchie. Well, she made her mark in later years. In fact, she was already 95 years old. In 1862, when the Confederate soldiers occupied her hometown of Frederick, Maryland, she was not afraid to show her devotion to the Union. Well, as the Southern troops marched past in front of her house, she waved the Union flag from her front porch. Well, after quite a scuffle, one of the officers gave Barbara permission to fly her flag as long as she wanted. Now, this is the Barbara Frietchie Star. Oh, it's beautiful in these red, white, and blue fabrics. It has 8 points, and then right around in the center, it has a pinwheel. Oh, great, in the blues and the light colors. And it's finished off with some beautiful machine quilting done by Donna Carter, and then it has a 4-point star setting the whole quilt together. Ooh, I just love red, white, and blue. Perfect for Stars Across America. Now, when you select your fabric, you need a zinger. Oh, now the zinger is the fabric that just jumps off the shelf, hits you on the head, and says, "Take me home with you." This is my zinger right here. I selected this bright red fabric. Oh, it's multicolored. So from this one fabric, I can pull all of the other ones. This is my dark, and then you need to have a medium that goes with it. Oh, a nice warm red. And then the light medium. This has some stars, some medallions throughout it. Now, another dark goes with the quilt. This is a monochromatic floral. Ooh, it's great. And look at this one. This one looks like it's right from the woods. The woodlands with the leaves and the fossils. And then another one with texture. It actually looks like an artist's canvas. Ooh, 6 different fabrics. You need to have a yard each of the 2 darks, 1.5 yard of the mediums, and then just a 1/4 yard of the light mediums. Now, once you have those 6 fabrics picked out, how about some background? You need to have 1.5 yards of that. Now, I have a new tool that I want to show you. It's a rotary cutter attached to a ruler, and oh, it's all lined up on that torn edge. You just bear down, cut away from you, cut off that torn edge, and just get rid of it. Now, I want to cut up my background fabric all at once, right in the beginning. Whoa, this is still sticking with me. Can't get rid of it. Okay, this is all set for cutting into 3.5-inch strips. And go ahead and move your ruler, line it up, make sure that the instrument is off the end of the fabric right up here. And it's nice and heavy. And it has a weight on it, so you actually don't move the ruler as you're moving it along. It won't slip on you. You can just lift it up easily. Now cut first 4 3.5-inch strips. And then those 3.5-inch strips are cut into 48 3.5-inch squares. That's 4 for each corner of the block. And then in addition, go ahead, continue cutting a second 7.5-inch strip. Let me get that lined up. The ruler is 6.5 inches. So if I just have 1 extra inch right sticking out on the end, you're going to cut one 7.5-inch strip and cut it into 7.5-inch squares. And then you need to have one 7.25 inch. So you can cut that into 7.25 inch squares. So I'm just going to use that to cut the strips. I know I didn't get them all done, but I'll get back to it. And then once I cut the strips, I'm just going to go ahead and use my square up rulers to cut them into squares. Let's see, 7.5 inches. Line that ruler up at the selvage edge. Square that off. Ooh, let's get rid of that selvage edge. And then just move it along, line it up perfectly, and cut 7.5 inch. Ooh, I need to have 5 of these. Let me get that lined up. But I'm just going to cut one set so it's ready for Barbara's star. Now these get cut into 3.5-inch squares. Go ahead and switch out to your 6-inch square ruler. Let's see. Oop, got one. You line up those edges. You can layer cut. It'd be just great. Okay, so once again, just line it up on the edge. Trim off that selvage. Get rid of that. And then move that along until you have 48. But this is all that I need for Barbara too. So let me just set those aside. Now, in addition, I need that pinwheel center. And it comes from the dark blue and the medium blue. And if you just take them, you can go ahead and layer them right sides together. Just have some smaller pieces here. Let me just go ahead and put the dark right on the top. This size piece is cut into a 4 by 8. Perfect ruler is the square up ruler. So just line it right in the corner and cut it oversized. How about a little bit bigger than 4 by 8 rectangle? So you can just go up and over. Once you have that cut, then just turn it around and now trim it to a perfect 4 by 8. Look at that static cling on there. I'm going to have to spray that so it doesn't jump up on me. Okay, trim those aside. This goes into another block. And the last piece that I have to cut is from this red, this dark red, and it's a 9-inch square. This is going to go into those points. We need to have those 8 points for the stars. So let me just line this up right in the corner. Look at that wide white selvage. Got to definitely get rid of that. Open it up so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, line that up. It's been torn from the bolt, so it's on the straight of the grain. Just in one corner, trim it a little oversized. And now put your ruler right back down at a perfect 9 inches. Up and over. And that's the last piece. Let me get ready for sewing. The Barbara Frietchie star is also known as the windmill star, first introduced in the Wallace Farmer, a Des Moines publication in 1874. That was a long time ago. But let's get that windmill done. Now it comes from those 2 rectangles, the 4-inch by 8-inch rectangles, the medium and the dark right sides together. And let's just go ahead, take the 6-inch square ruler and draw on 4-inch squaring lines right down that middle, and then turn the ruler so that the 45-degree angle of the ruler is right on that center line, and draw diagonal lines from corner to corner. Boy, you want to get that right from the start. Now the seam allowance is 1/4 inch, and boy, it's got to be perfect. So just take a look at your sewing machine. On this one, the needle is off to the left. And so what I'm going to do is just take that needle, move it over to the right, and stop. Okay, so that from right on the edge of the presser foot to the needle, it's a perfect 1/4 inch. Oh, I'll measure it in just a bit and we'll see. Okay, so take that foot, line it up on the left edge of the line, hold your threads right at the end, and just zoom right up, keeping that foot right on the left of the line. And then as you come into this point right here, you want to go ahead and use a needle down feature, so when you get to it, you can needle that in and just pivot right there. Turn it around, go down the opposite edge, the opposite side. Okay, needle up right here, turn it around and then just go right on the opposite side. You actually sew on both sides of the diagonal line, not on the straight lines at all. Okay, and just whip that around right up here. And we are just about done with that sewing. All right. Now, before you go on, you want to take this piece, just clip your threads right there. Let me cut this one right here. And just set your seams by pressing them. Just go right over them, set them down like that, and then cut them apart on the square lines. Let's just grab the square up ruler right here, go right down through the middle, and then just as you marked it, go ahead and turn your rotary cutter and cut it up and down. And now I want to show you two different ways. Oh, it would help if I got it completely cut, wouldn't it? I want to show you two different ways of squaring this up. They should be squared to 3.5 inches. Now the first method is whenever you drop them on the press with the dark on the top and just lift them up and over. Oh, wow, about a little steam like so. Press them so that the seam is right behind the dark. And now use your 6-inch square ruler, drop the diagonal line right down through the middle. Oh my goodness, they've got to be 3.5 inches. Boy, I don't have but a tad to trim off right there. So just drop it, center it right there, go up and over, and then once you have the two sides cut, then just go ahead and turn it the opposite way. Last two sides up and over. Oh, perfect 3.5-inch squares. Now that's one way. You press them open first and then square them. The second way is just to go ahead and leave them so that you haven't pressed them open yet, and take the 6x12 ruler and just line it up. Let's see. Oop, got it good. Okay, right here is the 3-inch line and then the 3.5-inch line. And I'm going to drop that dash line so that it's just in front of the stitching right there. Ooh, looks good. And then all you need to do is just trim off one side and then turn it and trim off those little tails sticking out. Okay, and whenever I press this, this should be a perfect 3.5 inches. Well, let me finish squaring these up, and I'll tell you a little story about Barbara. Oh, she was such a brave person there. When those 40,000 men, Lee's troops, marched through that town, she was brave and she was out there on the porch. But most of the town people didn't want to even come out. They just stayed in their house and just peeked out from the window. Well, one woman looked out and she said, why, Lee's men were the dirtiest, raggiest men that she had ever seen. But she said they had a spirit about them. Oh, just a great spirit, unlike the Northern soldiers. So it's a good story. Well, you know, McClellan was following behind Lee, and he certainly wanted to know the plans. He wanted to know where Lee was going. Well, one day, one of his soldiers was out in the field in Frederick and came across a piece of paper. Wrapped in the paper were 3 cigars plus Lee's plans. So it was no longer a secret. They knew exactly where Lee was going next. Well, this is no secret either if I can just get this windmill turned right. Okay, dark like this, let's swirl it around. Take this piece right here and bring this one like that. Ooh, looks great. Okay, now that it's lined up like that, perfect windmill, you're just going to take these pieces on the right and flip them onto the pieces on the left. And the way the seams have been pressed towards the dark, you can just roll those right in place. Looks great. Okay, so let me just take these two right here and line them up. Same 1/4-inch seam right in the beginning, and just zoom down. Like to match right here. Open that, roll that in, finger hold, or else you can go ahead and use your stiletto. And then just pick up the next two, roll those back, make sure they're in perfect order, and just zip those right through. Let me grab my stiletto because it's perfect for matching up those outside edges. Okay, straight down. This is just some good old assembly line sewing. Got to get this done quickly. And then when you open them up, they're joined together right in the center, but there's your 1/4 inch seam allowance prepared right there for it. So just take these pieces right here, flip them right sides together, and then press these seams in opposite directions. And actually, your stitching should go right across that point for a really crisp pinwheel. Let's see if I can get that lined up, get it all together. Now, it was also known as the windmill, but oh, there was a great other name. Ruby McKim referred to this pinwheel as the pieced star. You can see the pieced star right here. A little bit different in design. It actually has dark corners on the outside edge, but she actually published that. Ruby McKim published it as the pieced star. Great old pattern. Okay, now go ahead and take your windmill and just press it nice and flat. You can look on the back side, press those seams as they were sewn, lay that flat, give it some steam. Steam is just such a personal preference, if you want to have steam or not. Okay, now once you have that done, this should be a perfect 6.5 inches. And if it's not quite 6.5 inches, oh my gosh, look at that. Because if it's not 6.5 inches, then you want to go back and make an adjustment in your seam allowance. Otherwise, all of your blocks coming up won't match. Well, this is a great windmill center. Now, let's go on to the flying geese. That's the patch that I call those 8 points around the star. Now, they come from the 7.5 inch background square and from the 9 inch dark square. So put them right sides together, 2 different sizes of squares, but you're going to just center them right in the middle. Just get this completely lined up. Should be exactly the same distance on both sides. So just once you have them lined up, take your ruler and you can go ahead and use that diagonal line. Goes right down through the middle. Ooh, that looks good. And just draw diagonal lines straight through. Now this is a different technique. This is a patch that we call the flying geese patch. It actually looks like the points on a star, but when we're done, we're going to call this the flying geese patch. And there are 5 different patches in this quilt that use this same technique. So once you learn it, get really good at it. Now when you get down to the bottom right here, down one side, just raise your presser foot and just whip that right up the other side. Oh, and we forgot to do a check on that. We better make sure that this is a perfect 1/4 inch. So once you've gone down both sides, it's easy to see that if you take your ruler right on this piece, then measure it and make sure, oh, look at that, from one stitch to the next, that's a 1/2 inch in there. Perfect, just what you want. Okay, now, went down both sides of the diagonal line. Take your ruler, could be a longer ruler if you'd like. The 6x12 also works fine too. Cut it on the diagonal line. Now this is the tricky part. Usually we say, okay, press your seam to the dark side, but on this one, what we're going to do is press it towards the larger triangle. So drop it with a larger triangle on the top and then just lift it up and over. Press that along there. This is one time you don't want to have any little tucks or any little puckers right in that seam. So drop it with dark on the top, the largest on the top, and lift it up and over right like this. Now, we've got some really goofy looking pieces, but you're going to like this next step. Just put them right sides together, and this time put them so that the colors are opposites touching each other. Light with the dark, dark with the light. And you'll see there's no way we can match that seam. One woman said, boy, I have been off a lot, but never that much. Well, you can't line up the seam, but you can line up the outside edges. So just get them smooth, get them lined perfect, and then take your ruler again, line up that diagonal line along the edge here, and just draw a second diagonal line down through here. And actually what I'm going to do, so you can still see that pencil mark or whatever, I'm going to use a chalk so you can see that going through continuously. Actually, you might not have to do that as long as you can see it. Okay, right sides together, and just zoom right down that diagonal line again. down both sides of the diagonal line, and then take your ruler and just cut it again. And we're supposed to have 4 geese here. Let's see. When we open that up, sure doesn't look like geese to me. But you'll see, this is going to be a magical trick right in the end. So that we can get the seams laying right between this seam and this one. I'm just going to take my scissors and take a little nip and clip it right there. Okay, now this piece needs to be pressed nice and flat. So I like to press it first from the right side so that I can just get that seam going in the right direction on this half, little seam. That's one half, and then turn it over, and right here, put the iron right up in there. And then once you have that pressed from the right side, when you go on the wrong side, then you can see that the seams are just turned perfect. Whoa, except that one right there. I'd like to get that one nice and flat. All right, now we're going to square this up to 4 geese. It's going to be pretty amazing, I can tell you. Now, the best way to do this right now is to take the diagonal line on your ruler. You need to have a diagonal line plus a 1/4 inch line. That's what you're looking for in a ruler, 45-degree line and a 1/4 inch line. And I'm going to put the diagonal line right on one of those seams. 1/4 inch is right off the peak of that geese. So let's just trim it right there. That's one. Take the second one, turn it around, and do exactly the same thing. Line it up on that seam. 1/4 inch line right up here, right off the peak. So when you trim it, you actually take this little section right here. Gosh, this isn't good for anything, not even the next block. So now it's starting to look like geese. And once you have those 2 trimmed out like that, I find the best ruler is to go ahead and take the square up ruler with the diagonal line, because we want to make these geese a perfect 3.5 inches by 6.5. 3.5 by 6.5. So if you drop the diagonal line right through there, here's the 3.5 right here, here's the 6.5 right here. So I'm just going to trim up and over, take these 2 pieces, get rid of those, turn it around, and then right now there is just a tiny little bit that we're going to trim off right on this side. So just trim it off. It's perfect because we have the 1/4 inch seam right there, and we have both of the points, those seams going right into the points. Out of those 2 squares, you can make 4 geese. Well, let me get the rest of them squared up. To finish your block, all you need to do is add your 3.5 inch corners and sew your block together, similar to the way I did the pinwheel star. Now, red and blue have been popular since the Civil War period, and this is just a great 8-point star and 2 sizes of polka dots, large polka dots and small polka dots. It's great. Well, I love old fabrics, and so I like to work with reproduction fabrics just to create that look. This one I did in the reds and the blues, and this looks like it's tea-dyed or coffee-dyed. And I love this special border treatment going around the outside edge, zigzagging right up into a straight line in the corner. Now this border was designed by Karen. Oh, it's just great. Karen Strausheim designed this, and in black and red, it looks completely different, a nice contemporary look. Now those borders come from geese, the same geese that I've been showing you. All you need to do is make 7 sets of this. Put the 7.5 inch light on top and then the dark underneath. And when you're done, you're going to have geese that has a light part right here. And then the second set has the dark 7.5 inch square on top, light underneath, same technique, but when you cut it apart, then you create this zigzag effect. So 7 of those together per side, and then just assembly line sew them. Look what happens whenever you just chain those geese all together. Perfect. Now the corner is easy. All you need to do is take a 6.5 inch square, put a 3.5 inch square in the corner of it, sew in the diagonal line, then you just trim it and you just fold it out. And that's what finishes it. It's so easy to do. Well, why don't you just give a salute to Barbara Frietchie and parade off to your sewing room and make your block. And the next time we're together, we'll hop a train with Harriet Tubman.